One. Good afternoon. This is Dr. John Bennett broadcasting from sunny Miami. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. We're talking today with Julius Sweetland in sunny London, I think. Also, we have Manuel Menendez from Oviedo, Spain, which I haven't told you, Julius. We have a special guest here. So first, first I'll introduce Manny and let him introduce himself. Okay, hey Manny, how you doing?
Hello, John. Hello, Julius. Nice to be here. So, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming, Manuel. And Julius, Manuel is a neurologist, so this is certainly relevant to him. And to welcome Julius Sweetland, the backer behind Optikey. Excuse me. Hello, Julius.
Hey, hi, John. How are you? Thanks again for inviting me, also.
Okay, Julius. Well, let me just ask a few questions before we go through your website and kind of put some structure into what we're going to talk about. Can you just briefly describe your background and how you get into doing Optikey?
Sure. So I am a software developer professionally. I work within finance. So my day-to-day job is, apart from the technology, it's got very little to do with the medical application of technology. My background on this project is that 4 years ago, an aunt of mine died from what we call motor neuron disease, which you guys call ALS. And my experience with that whole process, one of my big takeaways was that the technology was insufficient at the sort of free to low price end of the market. And I sort of just started playing in my spare time to see if I could use my skills to produce something that was better and much cheaper.
Okay, what kind of problems was your aunt having that you thought you could help?
Well, she had the disease for about 2 years, and in the beginning, obviously, it manifests itself in fairly minor ways. But as time went on, the progression was aggressive, and she lost the ability to coordinate her limbs. So her ability to use her computer or phone or anything like that was compromised. The other big thing was over time she lost the ability to speak. So her voice became more croaky and sort of we couldn't understand her, and by the end she'd sort of lost the ability completely, which is reasonably common, I understand. So it was really just about finding technologies and solutions that would allow her to communicate with the people around her. You know, even basic things to say I'm in pain, you know, I need to be moved, that sort of thing. So that's probably the biggest challenge that I was trying to address.
Okay, Manny, you have any questions before we go through the website?
No, not really at this moment.
Okay, let me just put the website up here, and then we'll just kind of go through it, and you can direct me, Julius. Okay. Okay, here's the website. It's optikey.org, correct?
That's right. It takes you through to this GitHub page at the moment.
Okay. You want to just tell me where to go here?
So what we've got here is it's called a wiki on GitHub. It's kind of a big user guide. It's my way of explaining what the project is and how to use it. And there's some videos and bits and bobs on there. So it's designed for people who have no idea what the project is, and it gives them as much background as they need in the first sort of few paragraphs, and then it progresses, and it's designed for actual end users, so that you can say, well, how do I write words, how do I press keys, how do I use this thing with an eye tracker rather than my mouse. And I try and progress. On the right, you see there's a bar of links. I try and progress through those by increasing the complexity of the task that I'm trying to explain. So as you get towards the bottom, there's stuff like how do you make it more transparent if you want to see through it, and you know, things that an initial user doesn't need to know about.
So it's essentially a how-to guide, how to use the platform.
Yeah, I've written it not for developers, because GitHub.com is a developer's platform. It's where the source code is, and it's where I release new versions of Optikey. And typically the wiki is a way of talking to other developers and say, well, if you want to come and help me on this project, here's how you get started. But I'm using it as my website. So this is the Optikey website. And that video that's front and center when you first come onto the site, that is a 2-minute demo video of me showing off what Optikey can do. So I take you through all of its main features, which I I sort of created a little logo or slogan, which is type, click, speak, which are the three main things it allows you to do.
Okay, well let me just read this, Julian, so people that can't read it can hear. Optikey is an assistive on-screen keyboard which runs on Windows. It is designed to be used with a low-cost eye tracking device to bring keyboard control, mouse control, and speech to people with motor and speech limitations, such as people living with ALS and motor neuron disease. It was written to challenge the outrageously expensive, unreliable, and difficult to use AAC, alternative and augmentative communication products on the market. It is therefore fully open source and free forever. That's good news. Well, Julie, you want me to play this, or you want to just go on, or what do you want?
Yeah, you can do. I mean, it's not a very long video, and it does quite succinctly cover what Optikey does and what it looks like. So yeah, I think it tells a better story than I could put into words.
Okay, I'm just going to put it on, and you tell me if you hear the audio, okay?
Okay.
If you don't, then you're going to have to provide the audio. Okay, maybe you don't need audio.
So what I'm doing here, the audio is not coming through for me, but I'll talk over it.
Okay, go ahead.
So what you're seeing is me sitting in front of my computer in exactly the same scene that I'm actually talking to you now. And underneath my screen on my laptop, I've got a little eye tracking device, which it's about, I don't know, 25 centimeters long. It's not very long. It's like a short ruler, and it attaches to the bottom bezel just underneath the screen. The one I'm using is the Tobii iX. It costs $139 US. I'm then combining that with my software, which is Optikey, which is completely free, and I'm using where I look on screen to control Optikey. So you can see it's coming across a little jerky for me. So if other people are watching this, they may be getting a slightly different impression of how smooth it is. But as you look at a key, I'm using in this instance fixation or dwell triggers to make selections. So what that means is you look at a key for a configurable amount of time, it's like a second, and it fills up a little animation and says you've made a selection. And I'm showing off that it's got some other things, like typically you press letter by letter, and these sort of systems, they will try and complete the word to speed you up.
So you're not touching, you're just looking.
That's right, yeah. And at one point in the video, I hold my hands up like this and sort of show, look, I'm not cheating.
Okay.
So it's got the type ahead, so if you want to type letter by letter like you would with a keyboard, that's all supported. And it's also got this idea of like a swipe style keyboard like you might have seen on a phone. So you can do whole words and whole phrases just by pressing the first and last letter and then touching the intermediate letters, and it works out what you meant. And it's pretty accurate and pretty quick like that. And the other thing that's going on in this video is I'm showing that you can type as well. So it's not just about generating speech. It's about also typing into other applications. So you can type into Word, you can type emails, that sort of thing. And you can also do quite complicated mouse control. So my idea was, a lot of these systems, they say, well, look, people want to talk and they probably want to use their email and they want to use Facebook. So that's what we'll allow them to do in this constrained environment. And I wanted to break away from that and say, well, no, the eye trackers are good and they're cheap. So let's let the user, let's give them back a keyboard and let's give them back a mouse. And just because they can't physically touch these things, let's give them back everything they would be able to do if they could. So that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, okay. Manny, you have any questions?
Yeah, that's amazing. I wanted to ask, how compatible is it with other software? Can you use it with any software for Windows, or how compatible is it in general?
So I don't make any assumptions about what the other software you want to use is or how it works. In my testing, everything is fine so far. The only times I would imagine there might be slight nuances are when you're using apps that draw to the screen in sort of more interesting ways. So I'm talking about full screen games that are using, I don't know how techy you want me to get, but they're using sort of DirectX drawing techniques and that sort of thing. It might get a little bit more interesting with that, but I've had no feedback that anything is failing so far. So far so good, because what I do is if the user says I want to click here, I make Windows think that the user has used a real mouse to click there, and it just does what it would normally do.
Okay. You want to go to this? Let me just take you through some of the other webs. Let me screen share here for the website, and then we'll get back to that to see if you have anything else you want to show us on the website. Okay. Now we're down. Where do you want to go from here?
Okay, so we've had a quick overview of what it looks like. There's some other concepts I touch on here, like you can see it's in black and white. So no one seems to really care about this, which is annoying because it took me a long time, but it's completely themable. So my thinking was, if you've got users that don't really want to be staring at a black screen, they want a lighter screen, or they want a punchier screen because it's easier for them to see. There's all that sort of capability. The image in the middle there is me showing that you can type into Word. So that's just a demonstration that you can simulate physical key presses. And then the very bottom image on this first screen it's that sort of mouse control that I was talking about. So if you scroll down a tiny bit, you'll see.
Hold on, let me get back to the site here.
Yeah, sure.
Hold down.
So just a tiny bit. There's one more image there, and it's what I'm showing is that there's a mode on mouse control where I magnify. So you make your first selection, and it magnifies the area around where you've clicked. So your first click can be a little bit rough, and then I blow it up and say, well, where did you really mean to click? And it means that we get over some of the difficulties of using what is fundamentally a less accurate method of selection by techniques like this. So that's a sort of whistle-stop tour on page 1. I'm trying to just put my stool out and say, this is what it does.
Okay. Any questions, Manny, or comments?
Yeah, well, what about complex tasks when you need to go out from an application and then go into other application? Is there any problem jumping from one application to other? Does the keyboard, the visual keyboard, jumps with the movement of the user? I don't know if I am explaining myself.
No, I understand what you mean. I think if I put it another way, your question is, how do you keep Optikey visible and allow the user to interact with it whilst you're doing lots of other complicated tasks and switching between windows and that sort of thing?
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Right,
yeah.
Right.
So Optikey by default, it hovers over the top of everything. So there's a special mode that I put the application in that just says to Windows, I'm special, don't put anything over the top of me. And it even works in Windows 8 and 8.1. When you press the Windows key, you get that screen that comes up with tiles on it. It will even be above that. So it means that Optikey will always be front and center to you, which presents other challenges, which are, well, how do we move it out of the way? How do we see through it when it's getting in the way of things? How do we arrange other applications? And I've spent quite a long time trying to do a few things with that. So it allows you to minimize it out of the way. So let's say you wanted to watch a full screen video, you can just press one button on Optikey and it will shrink up to the top of the screen in a small place, or the side of the screen, or wherever you tell it to, and then you can bring it back when you're ready. It's got the idea of transparency. So well, it's sort of, let me put it a different way. Optikey can float. So let's say it's on the screen like this and it's windowed. You can move it. So there's a way, just using your eyes, you can say move around the screen like this, or jump, or whatever you want to do. Or if you move it to the edge of a screen and keep going, it will dock, and that's where you see it sort of filling half of the screen, or however big you want it to be. And when it's in that docked mode, every other application fills the bottom half of the screen, or the other part of the screen that's left after docking. So what that means is Optikey will sit there, take up half your screen or a third of your screen or whatever, and then you flip between your other applications, and that happens in the bottom half of your screen. So it means that you can always see what's going on.
That's cool. That's cool. Thank you.
Sure.
How'd you get into the optical part of it? Had you had some background in sciences, or did you collaborate with someone, a neurologist or an ophthalmologist? How do you know about that? Most software programmers don't know about eye control software.
No, I knew nothing about it. So this project has taken me an awfully long time. It's taken me, I'd say, nearly 4 years of tinkering and sort of messing about. I read a good book by the Cogain Society, COGAIN. It's an expensive book. It's like 100 and something pounds because it's one of these low-run books where there's only a couple of thousand made. But so it goes into a lot of the medical information and the physics behind eye trackers and that sort of thing. And I spent the first 2.5 years reading and tinkering, and I built some prototype devices which were cameras stuck on pairs of glasses or a rig that my dad helped me build, and it was trial and error, and it's brought me to the last year or so, which is where I really got my hands into the programming again, and it's just happened to coincide with the emergence of really low cost and really high quality trackers that are on the market. So all that time basically just helped me understand how these things work, and then someone solved the problem for me anyway by saying, well, here's one that costs $99. So
this comment applies to both you guys. Ned Sahan is a PhD from Harvard in Boston. He's working with autism, and he uses Google Glass to essentially track the eye movements of autistic children, because apparently there's some kind of correlation between the diagnosing autism and the way the child's eyes move. So I don't know if that's relevant, could be relevant to your project in as far as like maybe going there with eye tracking, using Google Glass.
Yeah, it's something that I've thought about actually, because I mean the Google Glass project is a very exciting project, and it's obviously got a lot of money behind it and a lot of smart people, so it will be a good collaboration. But there is one fundamental problem with eye tracking and head-mounted cameras, and that's that they typically are very bad at dealing with head motion.
Right.
So when you use an eye tracker, the first thing you do is you calibrate. So you sit in front of a screen and it displays points on the screen, and you follow them around like this. And it uses that information of where your eyes are looking to work out, well, now I know when he looks to the left, he's looking at this part of the screen, and when he looks to the right, he's looking here. Now, they then follow your head, and as long as it stays within what's called a track box, they're happy. They can make compensations for your movement.
Right.
But as soon as you just put it on a pair of glasses that's facing inwards, they don't know where your head is in space. So the problem is, as long as you stay perfectly still, it works. But if you start waggling around and that sort of thing, then it's finished. Yeah.
So you instruct the people to, while they calibrate, to please don't move your head as little as possible.
Yeah, if you're using a device that can't deal with it. But the trackers that are mounted on the bottom of the screen, like the IX, they're very good. Like I could be using it, I could turn around, talk to someone, look back from a completely different position, and it just finds my eyes, and it knows, right, his head's moved, it's rotated, right, away we go, we're all good.
Mm-hmm. Julius, and do you have any feedback from any person with neurological diseases, with disabilities? Do you have feedback from someone who have used it, who have experimented with Optikey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a clinical guy at all. So all I've got is anecdotal evidence of people sending me emails saying this is a good thing, this works in this way. But in the last 2 days, I've received 2 very, very positive indictments of the product. The most notable is a guy who's in Northern California, and his dad was using a $15,000 system with 2 speech therapists, and his dad is 82 years old, and they've spent quite a long time trying to teach him the idea of selecting a single key, and then they were going to go from there. And I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, I've been talking with his dad and explaining how it all works. His dad turns up at this session, they go through this process, and he fails to select a key, and his dad says, well, I've got this new idea, and brings out his laptop. And apparently in that first session, he was selecting whole sentences, which is something they've never got close to before. Wow. So these sort of successes are coming through, and I've got another one that came through the day after from a guy in France, and it's very, very validating, and it's making me very, very proud that it is seeming to have an impact on people very dramatically.
I guess associations of patients will be interested in knowing, in learning about this project, because they are always alert from new technology for their patients, for their members. So I think associations of patients with motor neuron disease and other neurological conditions will be really interested of knowing on this project.
Yeah, no, I hope so, because I think its big selling point is I'm just a one-man band. This has just been a hobby project. I'd like to think it's quite professional, and the end result is something that people are going to enjoy using, and it's effective. But the key selling point is it's free. It costs absolutely nothing. And in a world of $1,000 systems, it doesn't take a lot to set yourself apart and make an important difference. So I just want people to find it and try it.
Well, you know, Julius, Manuel and I are going to try to build a community of neurologists using this type of platform, the Hangout. Your platform is the Optikey. Our platform is the Google Hangout, and so it's also free, thank goodness. But we are going to try to build a big community of neurologists and to show them devices like this. Which Manny, you have many ALS patients in your practice?
Well, I don't have too much, but I would say I think around 10 to 15 patients with ALS. And yeah, they at the very beginning they don't have problem with their upper limbs, but then they get soon disability, so they cannot handle to manage a computer. So I think they could benefit from this system, from this software.
Sure, and the good thing, like Julia said, you can just try it to see if it works, and since it's free, what do you lose by just trying it?
Yeah. You can just offer them the possibility of installing and testing the system.
So we'll be keeping in touch, Julius, when we get this community going, because I'm sure a lot of other neurologists would like to hear about something like this.
Yeah, please do. I'd be very interested. And can I just take the opportunity as well to say one of the big things that's happening at the moment is since I launched it maybe 5 weeks ago now, I've had a lot of people volunteer, and one of the main things they're volunteering to do is translate it. So Optikey is not just in English anymore. It's officially in French. German is coming very, very soon. Russia's in a late stage of testing, and Spanish and Portuguese are on the list as well. So this is something I'm just trying to enlarge the audience, the potential audience, as much as possible. So yeah, watch out for that.
Well, you know, I've done a hangout with Dan Bacher from Brown University. He is the head of a big organization of ALS. So I'm going to immediately send this hangout to him and ask him if maybe you guys can have a hangout together, and he could actually, just like Manny asked pointed questions, he could also ask you pointed questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
About it, but it would be good for him to know about something like this being there, which is the beauty of Hangouts. It brings people together and brings ideas together. Might as well use it in today's computer world.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, I'll definitely send this to Dan and ask him if he wants to have a hangout. So very good, very good. That's a good overview. It's a good start, and we'll keep going and try to integrate your wonderful platform. At least let the the neurological community know about it. So I thank you very much for coming out, Julius, and thank you, Manny, for coming.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay, hang on. I'll just say goodbye to the world. Goodbye, world.